Hi guys, this is Sai Madhav. I will be dealing with subject auditing for you. I'm a qualified CMA. Now before starting, my special thanks to Ravi Agrawal sir for giving me this wonderful opportunity guys. Now some important points are the target of this series of revision videos are to cover all auditing standards, company audit and CARO in 6 hours. This is applicable for both inter and final students for old and new syllabus. Okay, the language will be in complete English. You will be getting customized material and charts in the description box below. So let's begin. You should have a basic understanding of what auditing is exactly. The definition of auditing is it is an independent examination of financial information of an entity. Now, why it is conducted? To give an opinion. Who conducts the audit? The auditor conducts the audit, right? Now, this is the overall audit process, guys. Okay, this is the way audit is conducted in any entity. First, the auditor will be engaged as per SA 210. Now, after his engagement, he should obtain the knowledge of client's business as per SA 315. After obtaining, he should plan the audit in accordance with SA 300. Now, he should perform audit procedures and obtain audit evidence. As per SA 315, 330, he should perform audit procedures. Now, as per 500, 580, 600, 620, he should obtain audit evidences. Now, he obtained audit evidences. Now, he should document those evidences as per SA 230 and other relevant standards. After documentation, finally, he would form conclusions and report as per SS 700 and CARO. Now, this is the overall audit plan, guys. Audit process, I would say. You should have a basic understanding. Whenever you study any standard, you relate here and apply here under which box that particular audit standard falls here, right? Now, you'll be getting charts like this, okay? First, we'll go to SA 210. The title of this standard is Agreeing the Terms of Audit Engagement, okay? Now, this essay deals with auditors' responsibilities in the audit engagement with management and TCWG. The objective is to accept or continue an audit engagement. Okay, accept is relevant for initial audit engagements. That is for the first time an auditor is being entered. Then it is called as acceptance. Continuation means for recurrent audit engagements. Okay. Now, what is the objective? Establishing whether the precondition for an audit are present. Preconditions means if those conditions are satisfied only, you will go with the audit. Otherwise, you won't go. Confirming that there is a common understanding between the auditor and the management or TCWG. There should be a common understanding. Okay. Now, what are the preconditions of audit? There should be acceptable financial reporting framework to be applied. Now, what is financial reporting framework? Framework is nothing but a methodology in which your financial statements are prepared. It should be acceptable. Acceptable means anything. It could be T-shaped balance sheet or as per Companies Act, whatever. It should be just acceptable. Okay. Now, the auditor should get an agreement from the management that it acknowledges and understands its responsibility for the preparation of financial statements, of course, in accordance with the applicable financial reporting framework. Now, here the mentioned word is applicable. Applicable financial reporting framework. You should remember this, guys. See, for a company, whatever may be the financial reporting framework, it should follow Companies Act, right? As per Schedule 3 Companies Act. For a company, it is the applicable financial reporting framework. In the same way, for a bank, it is as per Banking Regulation Act 1949 or whatever it is. Okay, that particular act regulates it. As per that particular act, it should prepare its financial reporting framework. Now, such internal control should be placed by management. Okay. Next, to provide the auditor with access to all information, additional information requested by the auditor, unrestricted access. Of course, you are doing an audit, you should go to the place of the client. The client should cooperate. So he should give access, additional information, unrestricted access. You should provide all this in the agreement in itself so that there should be no problem in the future. Okay. Now, limitation on scope prior to audit engagement acceptance. No, you did not accept till now. Now there is some limitation placed. Limitation means there is restriction of scope. Okay. Now, if auditor believes such limitation would disclaim an opinion. That means if you're auditing, if that limitation is being placed, then you would go for disclaiming opinion. Then you shall not accept an audit. That means if you accept they have put some limitation, for example, then you should be disclaiming an opinion. In that case, you will not accept itself. Okay. Now, other factors affecting audit engagement acceptance. What are the other factors? If preconditions of an audit are not present, preconditions we have studied above, then he shall not accept the audit engagement. That means only if the preconditions are present, all of them, then only the auditor will accept the engagement. Now, terms of engagement. It is nothing but a communication between auditor and the management of TCWG. Now, what are the contents there? The objective and scope of auditor financial statements, the responsibilities of auditor, the responsibilities of management, identification of applicable FRF, reference to the expected form and content of reports. Okay, this is all done before the audit itself. They will let the agreement so that after the audit there won't be any problem. Okay, misunderstandings and everything. Now, if law or regulation prescribes in sufficient detail the terms of audit engagement, the auditor need not record them in writing. That means if there is some law or regulation that is already prescribing all the regulations, then you do not record them again here. Okay. Now, these all initial audit. Now we will go for recurring audits. Recurring audit means continuing next time and everything. Okay. The auditor shall assess whether circumstances require the terms of audit engagement to be and whether there is a need to remind the entity. See, once you have prepared and given terms of engagement, the next time you won't give. But you will give in some circumstances where you feel there is a need to remind the entity or there is a change in existing terms. So two cases. One thing is you feel there is a need to remind the entity, or the second one there is any change in terms. Now, when should you remind the entity? First one, any indication that the entity misunderstands the objective and scope of the audit, misunderstanding or any revised or special terms of audit engagement. The terms are revised, then you should give a recent change of senior management. Okay, a significant change in ownership, significant change in nature or size of entity's business, a change in legal or regulatory requirements, a change in FRF adopted in the preparation of the financial statements, a change in other reporting requirements. Now, whenever these things happen, you should give a new TOE, terms of engagement. Now, acceptance of a change in TOE. So you are going with the audit, you are continuing. Now the management of TCWG comes and they want a change in the terms of engagement. Now, can you change them? The answer is no, but the auditor shall not agree, okay, unless there is a reasonable justification. There should be some reasonable justification for that. Only then you can change. If the terms of audit engagements are changed, the auditor and the management shall agree on and record the new terms of engagement. Okay? The auditor is unable to agree or not permitted by the management to continue with the original audit engagement, the auditor shall withdraw from the engagement. That is, you should resign from the engagement and determine whether there is any obligation to report to other parties. You should resign and you should see whether there is obligation. For example, ROC, you should report to ROC, CG, SEBI, etc., whatever the case may be, as per the required law or regulation. So this is the 210 standard, guys. Now we will go with the chart once. See, this is the overall overview, bird's eye view. 210. What are the preconditions? Acceptable FRF, management responsibility, they should provide an agreement, presentation preparation of financial statements, simple internet controls. They provide the auditor with all information, additional information, unrestricted access. Now, terms of engagement, common understanding between management and auditor. What are the contents, objectives, scope, responsibilities, applicable FRF, reference to the expected form and contents of the report. Okay. Next, recurring audit. Not required to send new engagement letter unless the terms are revised or there is any need to remind the entity. There are 8 cases we have studied. Next, if there is any change in terms of engagement, the auditor shall ascertain if management has a reasonable justification to do so. If yes, then you should give new terms of engagement. If no, you should withdraw, and you should see whether there is any contractual or obligation requirements to report to other entities. Okay, this is SA 210. Now we'll go with SA 250. The standard name is consideration of laws and regulations in an audit of financial statements. See, you are doing an audit. Okay, you'll be obviously having knowledge of standards on auditing and etc. everything. But for a company, you can say company, there are many laws applicable, right? Like Factories Act, Workers Act, Labors Act, many things, right? You need not have understanding of all of them. Okay. Now, what should you do in the process of audit? We'll see here. What are the auditor's duties first? The auditor shall obtain a general understanding of legal and regulatory framework applicable to the entity, the industry or sector in which entity operates, and how the entity is complying with the framework. Okay, you should have a basic understanding of the entity and everything around it. Now, the auditor shall obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence. See, sufficiency is the quantity of audit evidence. Appropriateness is the quality of audit evidence. We will study that later in 500 series. Okay. Sufficient appropriate audit evidence regarding compliance with the provisions of these laws and regulations generally recognized to have a direct effect on the determination of material amounts in the financial statements. So, if anything, any law or regulation is having direct effect on the financial statements, then the auditor should obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence. Okay, the auditor shall perform the following audit procedures to identify the instances of non-compliance. Okay, first, you inquire with management if there are non-compliances, and inspecting correspondence, if any, with relevant licensing or regulatory authorities. For example, the company is writing to TDS authorities or GST authorities regularly in letters or emails, everything. We should check those. Why are they writing regularly? Are there any non-compliances? We should know them. Okay. During the audit, the auditor shall remain alert to the possibility, that is professional skepticism. Okay, which may bring instances of non-compliances. Okay, you should always remain alert. You should obtain written representation that all known instances of non-compliances have been disclosed to the auditor. You should obtain written representation from the management. Okay, if the auditor becomes aware of information concerning an instance of non-compliance or suspected non-compliances, the auditor shall obtain understanding of the nature of the act and circumstances. You should understand the nature and circumstances. Further information to evaluate the possible effect on financial statements. See, all you are bothered here is financial statements. Whatever the non-compliance is, you should consider the effect on the financial statements. Okay. If the auditor suspects there will be non-compliance, the auditor shall discuss with TCWG. Okay. If they do not provide the audit evidence, then the auditor shall evaluate the effect on the auditor's opinion. Okay. First, you should discuss with TCWG. If they do not give or do not cooperate, then you should evaluate the effect on your audit opinion. Okay. Indicators for non-compliance. Okay. If these things happen, there is a high chance of non-compliance. Okay. First thing, investigations by regulatory organizations. Okay. Any investigations are being conducted by regulatory or government departments, or payments for unspecified services, for loans to consultants. Okay, you are paying regular to lawyers and everything, every consultants, sales commission or agents commission that are excessive. Okay, purchasing at prices significantly above the market price, legal and retainership fees, unusual transactions with tax haven countries like Mauritius. Okay, payments without proper exchange control documentation, failure of information system, unauthorized transactions or improperly recorded transactions, and finally adverse media comments. See, this is a list of indicators, guys. Now, reporting the non-compliance. You have identified non-compliances. So, what are your requirements to report? To whom to report? Okay, reporting non-compliance to TCWG. First, you should report to them. Okay. Now, if it is intentional and material, the auditor shall communicate with TCWG as soon as practicable. Okay, if all of the TCWG are involved in the non-compliance, then the next higher level of authority, if something exists, okay, if the higher level of authority itself is doing this, then you should obtain legal advice of what to do next. Okay, now what is the effect on auditor's report? Okay, if the auditor concludes that the non-compliance has material effect on the financial statements and has not adequately reflected in the financial statements, the auditor shall express a qualified or adverse opinion. Finally, you should see the effect on the financial statements. If it is properly disclosed, then nothing will happen. If it is not, then you should give a qualified or adverse opinion. As per SS 705, you will see there. If the auditor is precluded by the management, that is, the auditor is not given access, the auditor is precluded by management or TCWG to obtain evidence, stopped, okay, the auditor shall express a qualified or disclaimer opinion. Okay, when he's not having any proper evidence, he cannot give an opinion sometimes. So he can give disclaimer of opinion. Okay. Now, reporting non-compliance to regulatory and enforcement authorities. If the auditor has identified or suspects non-compliance with laws and regulations, the auditor shall determine whether there is a responsibility to report. Every time the auditor need not report to the regulatory authorities, guys. He should evaluate the effect on the non-compliances. Okay, if there is any need to report or not. Now we will see the chart of SA 250. This is 250, guys. Consideration of laws and regulations in an audit of financial statements. There will be two types. Laws which have a direct effect on financial statements. Laws which do not have a direct effect on financial statements. If there is direct effect, you should obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. Okay. In this part here, you should inquire management and you should inspect corresponding with regulatory authorities. You should maintain professional skepticism, that is remaining alert, and you will obtain written representation from all the management and TCWG regarding non-compliances. Okay, this is SA 250. Now we will go with the most important one of this series, SA 240. The auditor's responsibility relating to fraud in audit of financial statements. Now, what is meant by fraud? Fraud is an intentional act by one or more individuals among management or TCWG or employees or third parties involving the use of deception or illegal advantage. Deception is cheating, okay, done by management or TCWG or employees. It is an intentional act. It is done deliberately, okay. This is known as fraud. If it is unintentional, it is known as error, okay. Now, what are the characteristics of fraud? Okay, misstatements resulting from fraudulent financial reporting or misappropriation of assets. Okay, what is meant by fraudulent financial reporting? It is involving misstatements, including omissions. Omissions means not disclosing at all. To deceive financial statements users. Deceiving means cheating. You are suppressing some facts and you are cheating financial statement users. It can be caused by efforts of management to manage earnings in order to deceive financial statement users by influencing their perceptions as to entities' performance and profitability. Means you are cheating the stakeholders or shareholders by showing high profits, okay, by changing their perceptions, okay. Now, how can this be accomplished? By manipulation or falsification, forgery, alteration of accounting records, or supporting documentation, misrepresentation or intentional omission. Okay, misrepresentation means you are reporting something wrong here. Okay, or intentional omission, you have omitted something intentionally. Intentional misapplication of accounting principles. Okay, you have done these three, and this is known as fraudulent financial reporting. Now, fraudulent financial reporting often involves management override of controls. See, controls are placed by the management itself, so they have the full control over controls. Okay, they can easily override the controls that otherwise may appear to be operating effectively. For the outsiders, it appears that they are operating very effectively, but the management itself is overriding them. Okay, Fraud can be committed by management overriding controls using techniques such as recording fictitious journal entries, okay, particularly close to the end of accounting year, okay. In the end of the year, to show high profits, you can pass some journal entries which are fictitious. Fictitious means fake accounting entries, okay. Inappropriately adjusting assumptions and changing judgments used to estimate account balances, omitting, advancing, or delaying recognition in the financial statements, okay. Concealing or not disclosing facts. You are suppressing some facts by not disclosing them. Engaging in complex transactions. Altering records and terms related to significant and unusual transactions. Altering records, you are changing them. Okay. These are the examples for fraudulent financial reporting. Okay. Now, misappropriation of assets. Assets means you know what are assets. Misappropriation. It is nothing but theft of financial assets, entities' assets, and is often perpetrated by employees in relatively small and immaterial amounts. Okay, this can be accomplished by embezzling receipts. Okay, embezzling receipts means you are not showing them. Stealing physical assets or intellectual property, causing an entity to pay for goods and services not received, using an entity's assets for personal use. This is examples for misappropriation of assets. Okay, now responsibility for the prevention and detection of fraud. Now, whose responsibility this is? Not auditors. It is the responsibility of management or TCWG. Okay. Then what is the responsibility of auditor? Auditor conducting audit in accordance with SS is responsible for obtaining reasonable assurance, that is high level of assurance, that the financial statements taken as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether by cause or fraud or error. Okay. This is the responsibility of auditor. The risk of not detecting material misstatement resulting from fraud is bigger than risk of not detecting from error, because fraud is intentional. It involves sophisticated and carefully organized scheme and to conceal it. Okay. Now, collusion. Collusion means all the employees are collided together. Okay. Uh, it appears everything is perfect for you, but actually it is not. The auditor's ability to detect a fraud depends on factors such as skillfulness of the perpetrator, the frequency and extent of manipulation, the degree of collusion involved, the relative size of individual amounts manipulated, and the seniority of those individuals involved. Okay, these are the factors. Okay, that depend whether a fraud is detected or not. The risk of auditor not detecting material misstatement resulting from management fraud is greater than for employee fraud, because management is in top position. They have override of controls if possible. Okay, so the risk of not detecting that is very high. The auditor should maintain professional skepticism throughout the audit. Okay, now fraud risk factors. These are the events or conditions that indicate an incentive or pressure to commit fraud or provide an opportunity to commit fraud. Okay, I'll give some examples. For example, there is a sales target for employees. Okay, the employees are not able to achieve the targets, so they will pass some fake entries and everything. That is a pressure created by the management. No. Evaluation of audit evidence. The auditor shall evaluate whether analytical procedures are consistent with the auditor's understanding of the entity and its environment. Okay, analytical procedures you have to perform. Next, when the auditor identifies a misstatement, the auditor shall evaluate whether such a misstatement is indicative of fraud. See, every misstatement need not be fraud. So many are due to error also. So you should have an understanding which is a fraud and which is an error. If there is an indication, the auditor shall evaluate the implications of the misstatement in relation to other aspects of the audit, particularly the reliability of management representations. See, if there is a fraud, you should not see the single transaction itself. There may be many cases of fraud other than this also, and you have not come across them. So you should change your whole perspective towards the management. Okay, the reliability of the management representation comes into place here. Okay, if the auditor identifies a misstatement, the auditor shall re-evaluate the assessment of the risks. Okay, now prior to audit, before starting, you have placed some assessment of risks. Now you have to re-evaluate them. Okay, and its resulting impact on the NTE of audit procedures, nature, timing, and extent of audit procedures. To change everything now. Okay, when the auditor confirms that or unable to conclude whether the financial statements are materially misstated as a result of fraud, the auditor shall evaluate the implications of the audit. That is, you will qualify the report, adverse report, or if you cannot, disclaim. Okay. Now, auditor unable to continue with the engagement. The auditor shall determine the professional and legal responsibilities applicable. Okay. Consider whether it is appropriate to withdraw from the engagement. You have to see whether you can resign from the audit or not. And if the auditor withdraws, discuss with the management and TCWG. Okay, the reasons for the withdrawal, why you are withdrawing. Determine whether there is a professional legal requirement to report to other entities, as we have discussed earlier. Okay, now management representations. The auditor shall obtain written representation from management and TCWG that its responsibility for the design, implementation, and maintenance of internal control to prevent and detect fraud. It is the management responsibility to prevent and detect fraud by placing internal controls. Okay. It has disclosed the auditor the results of its assessment of risk of fraud. Okay. It has disclosed to the auditor its knowledge of fraud or suspected fraud affecting the entity involving management, employees, or others. If there are any frauds previously done or any suspected frauds, everything should be disclosed by management to the auditor. Okay. Communications to management and with TCWG. If the auditor has identified a fraud or has indication of fraud, the auditor shall communicate these matters on a timely basis to the appropriate level of management. Now, communications to regulatory and enforcement authorities. The auditor's legal responsibilities may override the duty of confidentiality in some circumstances. Okay. Now, the client's information should not be disclosed to anyone. Okay. But sometimes there will be exceptions. Okay. Now, whenever you see a question on SA 240 fraud, remember to write these 2 points. Okay, section 143 subsection 12 of Companies Act 2013. We will see in the Companies Act. Okay, when there is an amount of fraud individually more than 1 crore, you have to report to central government as per section 143 subsection 12, and also you have to report as per CARO. Okay, remember these 2 points, it is very important. Now we will see the chart of SA 240. See, you should follow professional skepticism. Fraud. This is an intentional act by management TCWG involving deception, illegal advantage. It is of two types: fraudulent financial reporting or misappropriation of assets. Okay. It is the responsibility of management or TCWG to prevent or detect frauds. So the auditor shall obtain management representation. Okay. Risk assessment procedures. What are those? Inquiring management and TCWG, identifying unusual or unexpected relationships, evaluation of fraud risk factors. Now, after you have done risk assessment procedures, you will form responses to assess the risks. How will you form responses? You can include surprise elements in NT of audit procedures. You should perform further audit procedures. You have to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidences. Okay. Now, final part. If you are unable to continue, then determine the professional legal responsibilities. Withdraw if legally permitted. If withdraws, discuss with management and TCWG and obtain professional or legal requirement to report. Okay, as I said earlier, section 143 subsection 12 and CARO are the main important points here. Remember to write whenever you see a question on SA 240. Okay, now the next standard is SA 260. This is a very small standard. Communication with TCWG. Okay, In the course of audit, you will be coming across various information, and some of them which you feel important, you have to communicate with TCWG. Okay. Now, what are the matters to be communicated? The auditor's responsibilities in relation to financial statement audit. What are the auditor's responsibilities? Second one, auditor's independence. The relevant ethical requirements of engagement team regarding independence. Okay. All relationships and other matters between the firm, network firms, and the entity that an auditor's professional judgment may reasonably be thought to bear an independence. All the factors affecting independence and the related safeguards that have been placed to eliminate the identified threats. Okay, all the safeguards that are placed to eliminate the threats. All these are important for independence only. Okay. Third one is planned scope and timing of audit. What is the scope of audit and the timing of audit? You have to mention significant findings from the audit. Whether there is significant findings. Okay. Significant difficulties, if any, encountered during the audit. If there are any difficulties, like the management is not responding to you properly, the management is not giving information, okay, then you can report to TCWG. Material weakness in the design, implementation, or operating effectiveness of internal control. Okay, this we will see in SA 265, the next standard. Okay, significant matters, if any, arising from the audit that were discussed of subject to correspondence with management. Now, management is of lower level, TCW is higher level. So you discuss some matter with management. So of those, some are very important. You can discuss to TCWG now. Return representation that the auditor is requesting, and the copy of draft audit report. Before you give the final audit report, you should give a copy to TCWG. So they should also agree with that. Okay. Now the auditor shall evaluate whether the two-way communication between auditor and TCWG has been adequate for the purpose of audit. If it has not, the auditor shall evaluate the effect on auditor's assessment of the risk of material misstatement. There should be a two-way communication. You have to be able to communicate. They should also be able to communicate. Okay. Retain a copy of communication as a part of audit documentation. Okay. Now, this is essay 260. Very simple one, guys. Now we will go to essay 265. Communicating deficiencies to internal control to TCWG. Okay. This is a very simple one. So it is important. You can get an idea by seeing this chart itself. Communicating deficiencies in internal control to TCWG. First, what is the internal control meaning? Internal control are the systems or policies or procedures placed by management or TCWG so that the objectives of the entity are met. Okay. For example, you can take this example. See, any transaction which is involving an amount greater than or equal to 1 lakh should be approved by the department manager. You can take this example. So this is the internal control placed by the management of TCWG. Okay. Now, whose responsibility is internal control? It is the responsibility of management plus TCWG. Okay. Now, the standard name is communicating deficiencies in internal control to TCWG. What is deficiency meaning? First one, control exists but fail to prevent and detect correct misstatement. Or the second one, control is missing. Okay. Now, as we have taken example of 1 lakh rupees transaction, the control is existing, but what is happening? The employee, he is logging with with the ID of manager and is approving the transaction. Now, what is the use? There is a control, but it is failing. So this is a deficiency. Or the second one, the control is missing itself. There is no control in place. So these two constitute deficiency in internal control. Okay. No. Significant deficiency. What is significant deficiency? The auditor, based on his professional judgment, should see which is important to report to TCWG. That is significant. That is nothing but important. Okay. Now, a deficiency or a combination of deficiencies in the auditor's professional judgment is of sufficient importance to merit the attention of TCWG. What he should do? communicate in writing with TCWG on timely basis. Okay, what he should communicate, what are the contents of written communication, description of deficiencies and their potential effect. Okay, what is the deficiency name and what are the effects on the financial statements. Sufficient information to understand the context. Okay, that ECWG should understand the context of the internal control. Okay, now you should give a statement to explain the purpose of audit is to express an opinion on financial statements. What is the purpose of audit? Expressing an opinion on financial statements. But now he is giving internal controls. Okay, no, audit not for the purpose of expressing an opinion on effectiveness of internal controls. So during the course of audit, he has come across some deficiencies. He is reporting to TCWG. But this is not the reason for conducting an audit. Okay, he should write clearly. Matters being reported are limited to those deficiencies that the auditor has identified plus sufficient importance. Okay, identified and constitute sufficient importance. When these two are satisfying only, auditors reporting to TCWG. Okay, there may be many other deficiencies also that the auditor need not, report. Now, actual misstatement plus likelihood of misstatement due to internal control. See, in the example we have taken the 1 lakh rupees amount, if there is actual misstatement also, he can report. Or there is not any misstatement present, but there is likelihood of misstatement, then also he can report to TCWG. This is the whole overview of SA 265. Okay, now the next standard is SA 299. This is also very simple one, guys. The title is Responsibility of Joint Auditors. See, who are joint auditors? Generally in large organizations, where the work is more heavy, there will be two or more practicing units conducting an audit. That is known as joint audit. Okay, now the work has to be divided on some basis, right? It can be by the basis of geographical location. For example, North India, one auditor is appointed, South India, one auditor is appointed, or components of FS. For example, one auditor is for balance sheet, another one's for P&L account, etc. Functional areas, okay, depending upon the functional areas, the departments, he can be appointed. Period. Okay, first 6 months one auditor, next 6 months one auditor. Okay, whatever the basis for division of work, it is to be clearly documented. Okay, now what are the advantages? Sharing of expertise. Okay, if more number of uh, auditors are appointed, more expertise. Okay, mutual consultation. Okay, better quality of work, obviously, better service to the client, low workload. Okay, as the number of people doing are more, the workload will be less on the auditors. There should be healthy competition which can lead to better performance. Okay, now what are disadvantages? Fees being shared, obviously. Before one person get to uh, got this whole fees, now it is being shared with two people. Ego problems, obviously. When two or more people are working together, there is a chance of ego problem. Superiority complex. For example, one is a very senior auditor, one is a newly uh, new firm. Okay, the first auditor will have superiority complex with the second one. Problems in coordination. Okay, the work should be coordinated. There can be problems. Confusion. Okay, confusion regarding work. Common areas being neglected. Okay, if there is some common area between two auditors, the first auditor will think second auditor will be doing, second auditor will think first auditor will be doing, so they'll neglect the common areas. Okay, no, normally agreed report, all the joint auditors will agree to one report normally, but not bound by majority. Separate report can be given. If an auditor in a joint auditor, he feels that separate report is to be given, he can give a separate report. Majority of auditors report won't work here. Okay, no, Joint auditor responsible only for the work allocated to him or her. Okay, all joint exceptions. See, joint auditor will be responsible only for the work that is allocated to him. The other areas he is not concerned. He is not responsible. Okay, but there are some exceptions. All joint auditors are jointly and severally liable. When they are liable, work not divided and carried on by all joint auditors. If any work that is not divided, all of them carried out, then obviously they will be liable. Decisions taken by all joint auditors regarding nature, timing, extent of audit procedures. Okay, decision taken by all joint auditors. Matters brought to notice and agreed by all. If there is any matter, it is brought to notice of all joint auditors, and they have all agreed, then they will all be liable. Okay. Presentation and disclosure as per applicable FRF. See, presentation disclosure is the final one. So they'll all be looking into it. So they'll all be liable for that. Okay. This is the whole crux of SA 299. Responsibility of joint auditors. Okay. Now we'll go to next standard SA 200. Sorry, SA 220. Quality control. We'll go with the notes here. Okay. The title is Quality Control for Audit of Financial Statements. Now there are some important definitions here. Engagement partner. Okay. He is a member and he's a partner. Okay. He's responsible for the engagement and its performance and for the report that is issued on behalf of firm. Okay. He is nothing but the boss, the boss of the firm. You can say like that. Engagement quality control review, a process designed to provide an objective evaluation before the report is issued of the significant judgments the engagement team made the conclusions they reached in formulating the report. See, the audit firm will be doing the audit. Okay. Now there is some process called engagement quality control review. In layman terms, you can say that this is the audit of the audit. Okay, whether the audit is being conducted properly. Okay, whether they are really independent. Okay, whether the conclusions reached, whether it is correct. It is nothing but audit of audit in normal terms, but you should not say like that. It is known as engagement quality control review. Okay. Now the person doing this is known as engagement quality control reviewer. Okay. He may be a partner, other person in the firm, suitably qualified external person. He can be external person also, or a team made of such individuals with sufficient and appropriate experience and authority to objectively evaluate before the report is issued the significant judgments the engagement team made and the conclusions they reached in formulating the report. Okay. However, in case the review is done by team of individuals, such team should be headed by member of institute. Okay, it can be partner, okay, other person, suitably qualified external person also. Okay, now engagement team, all personnel performing engagement, including any experts, form part of engagement team. So all the persons doing audit, the article students, everyone, they will all form part of engagement team. Leadership responsibilities for quality on audits. Okay, the engagement partner shall take responsibility for the overall quality on each audit engagement to which the partner is assigned. Okay, the engagement partner, the boss. Okay, he will be totally responsible. Relevant ethical requirements. Throughout the audit engagement, the engagement partner shall remain alert through observation and making inquiries as necessary for evidence of non-compliance with relevant ethical requirements by members. Okay, the engagement partner shall do all of this. If matters come to him that they have not complied with relevant ethical requirements, the engagement partner, in consultation with others in the firm, shall determine the appropriate action. Okay, independence. The engagement partner shall form a conclusion on compliance with independence requirements. In doing so, the engagement partner shall obtain relevant information from the firm where applicable network forms. Okay, that can cause threats to independence. The engagement partner is completely liable for independence. Okay, you should check whether engagement team is following independence or not. Okay, evaluate information on identified breaches. if any, on the firm's independent policies and procedures to determine whether they create a threat to independence for the audit engagement. Okay, now take appropriate actions to eliminate such threats and apply safeguards. If you cannot do all of this, you should withdraw from the audit engagement. Okay, this is to be done by engagement partner. Okay, engagement performance. The engagement partner shall DSP, direction, supervision, and performance. Okay, the engagement partner shall take responsibility for DSP of the audit engagement in compliance with professional standards and regulatory and legal requirements, and the auditor's report being appropriate. Okay, remember the code word DSP, direction, supervision, and performance. Reviews. The engagement partner shall take responsibility for reviews being performed. Okay, make sure sufficient appropriate audit evidence is collected. You should review all the work done by everyone. Okay, now engagement quality control review for audit of financial statements of listed entities. If any entity is listed on any stock exchange, it is not listed entity. Okay, the engagement partner shall determine that an engagement quality control review has been appointed. Okay, engagement quality control reviewer should be appointed. It is the responsibility of engagement partner. Discuss significant matters, okay, with engagement quality control reviewer. And the final point, not date the auditor's report until the completion of engagement quality control review. See, engagement quality control review should be done before auditor's report is being, okay. So after the review is done only, you can sign the report. Okay, so before that you should not sign. The engagement quality control reviewer shall perform an objective evaluation of the significant judgments made by the engagement team and the conclusions reached. Okay, you should make an objective evaluation. Next, the evaluation shall involve discussion of significant matters, review of financial statements, and the proposed auditor's report. Proposed auditor's report. Okay, you have not made final one. Proposed means this is to be final. After confirmation, you can give this. Review of selected audited documentation. All the audit documentation, they should review selected ones which are very important. Okay. Evaluation of the conclusions reached in formulating the auditor's report. On what basis you have made the conclusions? They should evaluate. Now, for audit of the financial statements of listed entities, the engagement quality control reviewer, on performing an engagement quality control review, shall also consider the following. The engagement team's evaluation of the firm's independence. Appropriate consultation has been taken whether audit documentation selected for review reflects the work performed. See, firm's independence is taken care by engagement quality control reviewer as well as engagement partner. Both of them should make sure about firm's independence in case of listed entities. Remember this point, guys. Now, difference of opinion. If difference of opinion within the engagement team with those consulted or within the engagement partner and the engagement quality control reviewer. See, these people, there are many people involved here, so there may be differences of opinion. The engagement team shall follow the firm's policies and procedures. The firm will be having some policies and procedures. Okay, they should follow them for dealing with and resolving differences of opinion. Okay, this is the whole essay 220. We will see the chart here. Essay 220, quality control. The people involved here are engagement partner, engagement quality control reviewer, engagement partner, leadership responsibility for quality, relevant ethical requirements, including independence. Okay, acceptance and continuance of client relationships, assignment of teams. Okay, direction, supervision, review, and consultation. You should appoint quality control reviewer. Now, quality control reviewer. He'll discuss significant matters with engagement partner. Review of proposed auditor report. Review of selected documentation. Evaluation of conclusions reached. For listed entities, additionally, firm's independence, significant matters involved in difference, significant judgments. Okay, this is the overview of essay 220, guys. Okay, now we'll go to essay 200. This standard contains mostly definitions, guys. In some basic understanding, we'll go through this one. Essay 200, the name is Overall Objectives of Independent Auditor and Conduct of an Audit in Accordance with Standards of Auditing. Okay, now why is an auditor appointed, guys? Because in a company, the ownership is different and the management is different. So the owners, that is shareholders, they cannot know what's happening inside the company. Okay, so there should be some, some form of reliability they should place on the company. That is done by auditor through auditor's report by giving an opinion. Okay, that is the purpose of audit. This standard deals with overall responsibility of an independent auditor. Okay, the purpose of audit: an independent audit is required to give confidence to the user of financial statements regarding the reliability. So this gives confidence. Okay, the company is performing well. We can invest in this company, whatever it is. Okay. Therefore, an auditor can express his opinion on financial statements whether they are showing true and fair view in accordance with applicable financial reporting framework. Okay. We have discussed what is applicable financial reporting framework earlier. Okay. Now, true and fair view. What is this true and fair view? Okay. The audit has some inherent limitations, guys. We will see that here. Now, true and fair view means it is true, the numbers are true and fair as per financial reporting framework. Okay, fair presentation or disclosures. Now, why not correct? Okay, they can be true and correct view. See, you are doing an audit. Okay, you have so many inherent limitations, so you cannot say correct. If you are saying correct, then this won't be audit report. This will be audit certificate. When you are certifying something, you are saying that it is correct. But when you are giving a report and you are giving an opinion here, okay, then you cannot say correct. Okay, why we cannot say correct? We will see that later here. Okay, now applicable financial reporting framework means the framework methodology adopted by the management and TCWG in the preparation of financial statements. Okay, we have seen that already. What is the scope of an audit? The auditor's opinion doesn't give any assurance on future viability of the entity or efficiency or effectiveness of the entity. Okay, the auditor is giving opinion based on the past record of the company. He cannot give any assurance regarding the future of the company. Okay, future viability means no guarantee on the continuance of the entity, right? The auditor has to check whether financial statements comply with financial reporting framework or not. Okay, he should have an understanding what is the applicable FRF for a company. It is scheduled to the Companies Act. Whether the financial statements are as per those or not, he should have an understanding. Okay, audit to be conducted in terms of laws and regulations. Okay, all SS to standards on auditing to be followed, Companies Act to be followed. Okay, obtain reasonable assurance. Now, what is reasonable assurance? It is the high level of assurance, but it is not absolute assurance. Okay, auditor has to obtain reasonable assurance regarding financial statements whether they are free from material misstatements which may arise due to fraud or error. Okay, material misstatements. Misstatements means actual versus required. Means there is something required as per FRF. Okay, but in actual you are not doing that and you are giving reporting something else. Okay, then it is known as misstatement. Okay, it's material, it is known as material misstatements. The auditor has to obtain reasonable assurance. That is, he should obtain high level of assurance. Okay, whether they are free from material misstatements. Material misstatements can arise due to fraud or error. We have seen this in SA 240. Okay. However, reasonable assurance is not absolute level of assurance because it has some inherent limitations. So reasonable assurance means high level of assurance. Okay. Most of the audit evidence on which the auditor draw conclusions and forms opinion is being persuasive rather than conclusive. Okay. Conclusive means the last. Okay. You can conclude that this audit evidence is the final one. But in actual, You can't go for conclusive evidences. You have to go for persuasive evidences only. Okay. If the auditor obtains sufficient and appropriate audit evidence, then it may be useful to reduce the audit risk to acceptably low level. The audit risk can never be zero. Okay, you can bring it to acceptably low level. How can you bring it? By obtaining sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. Sufficient means quantity, appropriateness means quality. So you should balance both quantity and quality of audit evidence to bring the audit risk to acceptably low level. Okay. Now the most important part of this standard, inherent limitations of audit. So why true and fair view? Why not true and correct? Okay. Why reasonable assurance? Why not absolute assurance? The answer is this. The nature of financial reporting. See, the financial reporting itself, the nature itself, it's very complicated. There are many judgments to be made. Okay, like depreciation, uh, inventory, valuation of inventory, okay, goodwill, etc. There are many things. Okay, it is very complicated. So there are many judgments involved in the preparation of financial statements only. This is an inherent limitation. And the nature of audit procedures. Okay, the audit procedures, the nature, if you see, the auditor has to make several judgments. Okay, and he has to follow sampling because he has to be done in a particular time. He cannot verify each and every transaction. Okay, so has to follow sampling methods and analytical procedures. So it is the nature, it is a inherent limitation also. In the final one, the need for the audit to be conducted within a reasonable period of time and at a reasonable cost. Of course, you cannot do audit for the entire year. Okay, there will be specified time for that. And reasonable cost means you will be given a specified fees for the audit. Okay, you have to maintain your whole engagement team within the cost. Okay, so you cannot spend much time or much resources. Okay, these three are the inherent limitations of the audit. Now, what is the overall objectives of an auditor? The overall objective is obtain reasonable assurance from the management whether the financial statements are free from material misstatements, whether due to fraud or error, to express a true and fair view. Okay. Oh, sorry, we have seen this already, right? Inherent limitation or objective. Okay. Definitions. No. What is risk of material misstatement? Okay. The risk that the financial statements are materially misstated prior to audit. Before the start of audit only, they are materially misstated. Misstatements means we have studied already. This consists of two components. Okay, inherent risk and control risk. Okay, inherent risk means we have studied what are internal controls, right? If the controls are absent, that is they are not present, the risk of happening a material misstatement is known as inherent risk. Okay, the susceptibility of an assertion about a class of transaction account balance or a disclosure to a misstatement that could be material before consideration of any related controls. So you should not consider internal controls here. Okay, then it is known as inherent risk. What is control risk? There are controls, but the chance of the controls failing or not detecting a material misstatement, that is known as control risk. Okay, the risk that a misstatement that could occur in a session about class of transaction, account balance, or disclosure, and that could be material, either individual or aggregate, will not be prevented, detected, and corrected on a timely basis by the internal control. Okay, the combination of these two will be the risk of material misstatement, ROMM. Okay, now what are the responsibilities of an auditor? Ethical requirements. First one is integrity. He should be straightforward, honest, and sincere in his work. Code of ethics. He should follow code of ethics under the Chartered Accountants Act 1949. Objectivity. Okay, he should be very objective, that is unbiased in his work. Okay, confidentiality. See, the clients and the books of accounts and the information is very confidential and sensitive. Should not disclose to any outsiders, okay? Unless he has obtained the client approval in writing or there is a legal duty to disclose. Okay, unless these two are satisfied, you should not disclose to anyone. Professional skepticism. This is a very important two-mark question, guys. It is an attitude that includes a questioning mind and critical assessment of the situation or circumstances in the audit. Okay, it is an attitude, questioning mind. Okay, remember the key points here. Auditor should maintain an attitude of professional skepticism in order to reduce the risks. Okay, professional skepticism includes being alert to whenever the audit evidence obtained from one source is contradictory to another source of audit evidence. Okay, so you have got evidence from one source and another source is saying some other thing, then you should be alert to conditions. There is something wrong here. Okay, questioning the reliability of documents. Whenever some document comes to your desk, you should not accept it as usual. Okay, you should check the reliability. You should have an understanding the source of the document who has given you, whether it is original or a duplicated one. Okay, you should question the reliability. The auditor should identify the area in which there is a possibility of occurrence of fraud. Okay, in an organization there are many areas of chance of occurring fraud. You should identify the areas and you should be more alert to those areas. Okay, if situation demands, the auditor can go for additional audit procedures. If the auditor feels that the management at TCW wrong giving wrong information, then the auditor can go for further audit procedures. Okay, you can go for further audit procedures. Auditor can accept records and documents as genuine unless there are contrary reasons. See, professional skepticism doesn't mean everything is wrong. Okay, he will not accept anything. He should not be like that. He should accept records and documents as genuine unless there is any contrary reason. Okay, no professional judgment. While doing an audit, you have to take many judgments. You have to take many calls. Okay, it refers to application of relevant training. Okay, you should be properly trained, knowledge and experience obtained in the field of accounts, audit, and law to take informed decisions in deciding the materiality level and planning. Okay, this is professional judgments. Now, audit evidence and audit risk. To obtain reasonable assurance, the auditor shall obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence to reduce audit risk to acceptably low level and thereby enable the auditor to draw reasonable conclusions on which the auditor's opinion is based. Okay, the auditor cannot expect the audit risk to zero. We have already discussed this. Okay, conduct an audit in accordance with standards on auditing. Okay, I should follow all the standards to conduct an audit. Okay, if an objective in relevant essay cannot be achieved, the auditor shall evaluate whether this prevents the auditor from achieving the overall objectives of the auditor and thereby requires the auditor in accordance with essays to modify the auditor's opinion or withdraw from the engagement. Okay, if any particular standard he cannot follow, then he should think about the overall objectives of the auditor, whether it can be achieved or not. If it cannot be achieved, he should modify or he should withdraw from the audit. Okay, this is essay 200, guys. This is very easy one. Now the last part of this series is essay 230, audit documentation. Now this standard on auditing deals with auditor's responsibility to prepare audit documentation for an audit of financial statements. Okay, nature and purpose of audit documentation. Okay, see guys, the basic objective is to give an opinion, but there should be some basis on which the opinion is given. You cannot give opinion, modified opinion, qualified opinion. There should be some basis. Okay, that basis is by collection of audit evidence, but you have to show some documentation, guys. That is covered in the standard essay 230 audit documentation. Okay, nature and purpose. Audit documentation that meets the requirement of this essay and the specific documentation requirements of other relevant essay provides evidence of the audit as basis for a conclusion. As I have told you, evidence that the audit was planned and performed in accordance with essays applicable legal and regulatory requirements. Okay, It acts as a proof for you guys in the future. Audit documentation serves a number of additional purposes. What are those? Assisting the engagement team to plan and perform the audit. Okay, you can divide the work easily when you document those. Okay, assisting members of the engagement team responsible for supervision to direct and supervise the work and to discharge their responsibilities. Of course, when you're writing something, you can easily direct and supervise the work of others also. Okay, enabling the engagement team to be accountable for its work. See, if everyone is doing the work, then you have no idea who is doing what work. You know, they'll pass the blame to others. So when you are documenting something, the engagement team will be accountable for its work. Okay, okay, guys. Retaining a record of matters of continuing significance to future audits. Okay, for example, you are doing the audit for the next year also. Then whatever you have documented this year will be very useful in the upcoming audits. Okay, enabling the conduct of quality control reviews and inspections. We have studied this in SA 220, right? That is very helpful here. Okay, by maintaining documentation, it can easily conduct quality control reviews and inspections. Okay, enabling the conduct of external inspections in accordance with specific legal, regulatory, other requirements. Okay, if there is any external inspections, okay, it would be very helpful. Definitions. What is audit documentation? The record of audit procedures performed, the relevant audit evidence obtained, and the conclusions the audit reached. These three things constitute audit documentation. Okay. Now, what is audit file? One or more folders or other storage media in physical or electronic form containing the records that comprise the audit documentation for a specific engagement. This is known as audit file. Okay. It is nothing but a collection. Okay. Now, an important MCQ is audit file can be in electronic media or not. Okay, the answer is yes, it can be physical or electronic also. Now, experienced auditor. Who is an experienced auditor? An individual who has practical audit experience and a reasonable understanding of the audit process, standards and applicable legal and regulatory requirements, the business environment in which the entity operates, auditing and financial reporting issues relevant to the entity's industry. Okay, he should have a practical experience and a reasonable understanding of these things. Then he is known as experienced auditor. Okay. Requirements. What are the requirements under this standard? The auditor shall provide audit documentation on a timely basis. Okay. Preparing sufficient and appropriate audit documentation on a timely basis helps to enhance the quality of the audit. Okay, you can improve the quality of audit and facilitates the effective review and evaluation of the audit evidence obtained and conclusions reached before the audit's report is finalized. Okay, for giving a report, you have to correct some audit evidence, right? By maintaining proper documentation, you can have a better idea of everything. Now, documentation. What is the form, content, and extent of audit documentation? The auditor shall prepare audit documentation that is sufficient to enable an experienced auditor to understand. We have discussed who is an experienced auditor, right? Now, the audit documentation will be prepared in such a manner that any outsider who is an experienced auditor will be able to easily understand the NTE of the audit procedures performed to comply with SAs and applicable requirements. Okay, the results of the audit procedures performed and audit evidence obtained, significant matters arising during the audit, and the conclusions reached. The auditor shall document discussions of significant matters with management, those charged with governance, and others, including the nature of significant matters discussed. Okay, this is as per SA 260. That's why we have covered there first. Okay, see, understand this. Even if an outsider who is an experienced audit, he should be able to understand the NTE, the results, audit evidences, significant matters, and everything. Okay, in that way, he should maintain the documentation. Now, the form, content, and extent of audit documentation depend on factors such as size and complexity of the entity. For large entities, there should be more requirements of the audit documentation. For smaller ones, small things are enough. The nature and audit evidence proper procedures to be performed. Okay. The identified risks of material misstatement. The significance of audit evidence obtained. If it is more significant, then there should be more documentation. Okay. Audit documentation may be recorded on paper or electronic or other media. I have told this. Examples of audit documentation include, okay, audit programs, analysis, issues, memoranda, summaries of significant matters, letters or confirmation and representation letters, checklists, correspondence consuming significant matters. All these are examples of audit documentation. Okay. Now, the final part of this standard. Okay. Ownership of audit documentation. Now, who is the owner of audit documentation? The auditor himself is the owner of audit documentation. It is told as per SQC 1. Okay. Quality control standards. SQC 1 provides that unless otherwise specified by law or regulation, audit documentation is the property of the auditor. This is very important, guys. Remember this. He may, at his discretion, make portions of or extracts from audit documentation available to clients, provided such disclosure does not undermine the validity of work performed. That means he may at his discretion, that is, he may at his own will, okay, make portions, okay, or extracts. He may make portions or copies or extracts, okay, provided such disclosure does not undermine the validity of work performed. But that doesn't mean you should give to everyone, every outsider, okay. That should not undermine the validity of work performed. Then only you can give. It is at the discretion of the auditor, okay. Now, some important points which can be asked in the question regarding this ownership is, even statutory auditor cannot have access to branch auditor's working papers. This is very important. Okay, you can get a question from this standard. Okay, the statutory auditor is requesting the branch auditor to give his working papers. The branch auditor can say no. Okay, working papers need not be shared. It is the property of his own. Okay, now SA 200, maintenance of confidentiality. Whenever you see a question from the standard, you can link to SA 200 saying that confidentiality to be maintained and link with SA 230 documentation. Okay. Now, clause 1 of schedule 2 of ICAI Act 1949. If you are a final student, you will have a knowledge of this. As per this clause also, you should maintain confidentiality. So whenever you see a question on this audit documentation confidentiality issue, you try to relate SQC 1, okay, SA 200 and clause 1 of schedule 2. When you try to link all these things, you'll be getting a perfect answer. Okay. Now, matters arising after the date of auditor's report. You have given the auditor's report. After you have given the report, so there are some matters arising. If in exceptional circumstances the auditor performs new or additional audit procedures or draws new conclusions after the auditor's report, the auditor shall document the circumstances encountered, the new or additional audit procedures performed, audit evidence obtained, and conclusions reached in their effect, okay, when and by whom the resulting changes to audit documentation were made and reviewed. Nothing else. After date of audit report also, you need to maintain audit documentation regarding all these points we have discussed. Now, SQC1 requires firms to establish policies and procedures for the timely creation of the assembly of audit files. An appropriate time limit within which to complete the assembly of final audit file is ordinarily not more than 60 days after the date of auditor's report. Okay, you have to assemble the final audit file within 60 days after the auditor's report. Now, the retention period as per SQC1. Retention period is you have to retain the documents for how many years? It is not shorter than 7 years. That means you have to maintain at least for 7 years from the date of auditor's report. If later, date of group auditor's report. Okay. Now, there is a small question in this chapter, guys. That is, Permanent versus current audit file. This is a very simple one. You can go through this. That's why I did not mention here. So this is SA 230 audit documentation. Okay, we will see the chart here. SA 230 audit documentation. Okay, what is audit documentation? It is a record of audit procedures performed. We can call this as working papers of the auditor also. Okay, plus relevant audit evidence obtained plus conclusions reached. All this form part of audit documentation. Now, what is the purpose of maintaining documentation? Basis for conclusion. Work was planned and performed in accordance with SS. Okay. Now, auditor disclose information. Can he disclose to third party? No, unless required by law or regulation or permitted by client. Okay. Whether he can disclose to client? Yes, he can disclose because it is his own information. So he can disclose to client also. Now, showing working papers. Can he show to third party? No, because it is undermining the validity of his work performed. Can he show the client? It is discretion of the auditor. He may at his own discretion. Okay. No right for client. Client can't demand to show the working papers, but it is the discretion of the auditor. Okay. No. Retention period. We have discussed 7 years as per SQC 1. Final audit file to be prepared by auditor within 60 days from the date of auditor's report. Okay. Audit documentation. It is a property of the auditor. Okay. He need not share with anyone else. Okay. This is the SA 230, guys. We have covered all the standards in 200 series. Okay. Total 9 standards we have covered. Okay, guys. So thank you so much for watching this. Okay. Try to remember this whole process, guys. Whenever you see a standard, you try to link here and you try to understand which standard appears in which box here. So you'll be having a better understanding when you're writing answers. Okay. It will help you a lot, believe me. Okay. So if you like this, guys, please like the video and comment here and subscribe to this channel. Okay. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you.